All right, so we're starting back up, but one thing that came up while we were taking a break here is one thing that wasn't very clear was how I wanted last week's assignment to look. So I just did it with the two that are here. Um, and while they are grading me because I didn't put any comments, I'm not going to take the time to write comments right now. But this is basically what I wanted to see. Have them enter their first value, prompt them, have them enter their second value, prompt them, and then enter it, and then print their result like this. I know I didn't put your result in the actual assignment document. I probably should have to make it lead you to where you need to go, and I'll talk about what I mean by that in a second. And then because these two griped at me, I did make the effort and put in my signature, which I use fairly regularly for my college classes when I do programming classes in college, with the exception of it's usually not the Mad Dogs, it's usually my class name. But I want you guys to remember one thing. If your system.out.println starts with a string, Java is intelligent enough to take a variable that is saved as a number and make it a string. Okay? So all you have to worry about is starting with a string and then using the plus operator to do concatenation, then create another string to add in another plus and a couple extra spaces, then add the next number, then another string to do the equal sign, and then finally the last number that is your result. Okay? This was not really meant to be
confusing.
Hard hammer on difficulty. I was hoping that this would be one of the easier assignments that you did, but I can see that I'm going to struggle with my own inability to make an assignment that makes sense. But this was the sort of thing that I was tasked with doing when I first started learning. Granted, I usually had a lot more assignments each week than just one small one like this, but I suppose it's different because this isn't actually being taught in a regular class setting where you go to class every single day and practice.
Dumb it down, Florence.
But anyways, this is all we're going to talk about. These two have both already started the assignment, so I gave them some leeway on the whole seeing me write the code thing. But I am going to pause this video for a second before we continue on to get rid of what I wrote, and then we will move on to talking about if statements. As I continue to combat my soreness here, not really. We're going to talk about if statements. If statements and the associated other elements with them are used to ask questions in Java. If one thing is true, then do this. If this thing is true, then do that. If none of our conditions are true, then do this thing, etc., etc. If statements rely on Boolean logic we talked about earlier to create conditions, elements that evaluate to true or false that determine behaviors. The general structure of an if statement, if we create a new space here, looks like this. If, and it's not capitalized because fuck word, if condition, then my mouse keeps moving without my intervention. Do something if true here. Else. Son of a bitch. Else do something if false here.
So when you say to do something if true or here or false here, is that in commenting or is that actual print?
No, this is called pseudocode. It doesn't. This isn't real like programming, what have you. This is just gibber.
This is
It's
what-
just to show you the general structure of how this is supposed to look.
This is what Gremlin made us do during VEX programming class.
So basically, if this condition is true, then we're going to do this block of code between the curly braces. Okay? Otherwise, if that condition is not true, then we're going to do this block of code. Does that make sense?
So basically, if, say this as like an if for the robot, if I ram into a wall, I need to back up. If I do not ram into a wall, I continue straight.
Yeah, that's the general idea. It will be more like if bumper sensor is true or is equal to true, then back up.
Run the wheels.
Else drive forward.
Justin.
So this is the general idea. There are multiple ways to create conditions in Java. And they're very, very similar with the exception of two of them to math. Two of them you'll find a little strange. Well, one of them you'll find very strange, one of them you'll find a little strange, and the rest of them will be fairly familiar to you. The first one is this. What does this do?
This is equal. Wouldn't it be setting it equal to something?
Not setting it equal.
But setting it to something?
No. Checking if something is equal. Double equal signs in Java and in many other programming languages means is something equal to something else. Okay?
So this is basically just asking Java a question: is this equaling to true or equaling to false? Or is it not?
It can be broader than that. So like the single equals operator is exclusively to assignment. If you are trying to give a value to something, like creating a variable. Double equals literally means are the two things on either side of these equal signs equal to each other. Okay? So if I had 25 double equals 25, then that would be true.
But if you did that 25 double equals 32, then it would be false.
Correct.
Okay.
And you can do this with all the other values that we are accustomed to using, with the exceptions of strings. We'll talk about strings here at the end. But if you did true double equals true, then that would result in true.
Okay.
So another example of this would be A and B double equals C if A equals true and keep getting half-assed backwards here, and C equals false. What does that result to?
True. That would be actually
no.
false.
That would be false.
Because the A and B, since they're both true, they would equal true. And since C is false, the double equals would make them both make it entirely false.
Correct. Very good. Okay.
I can finally get it.
So here's the next one.
It's 50-50 chance on this.
What does this do?
Fine face.
No, the exclamation point and the equal sign. What did we just learn the exclamation point does?
Not.
Make not.
So, what does this do?
Unequal.
Not equal to. So, this is basically just the inverse of the above. So, 25 not equal 25 would be
False.
25 not equal 32 would be true. And then, of course, true not equal true would be false. It's fairly straightforward. The next few I shouldn't have to explain. You guys should know what they do. If you don't, God save me. Hello? Anybody out there?
Greater 2 than.
Greater 2?
Greater than.
Greater than or
Less than.
Greater
what?
Than, greater than or equal.
Heaven sent. Holy shit. Hello? Anybody out
Less
there?
than or equal.
No word. Stop. Stop. Okay, you freaking undo automatic bullets. I'll do it by hand. Anybody home?
Greater than. Less
Less
than.
than.
Thank you. Jeez, it only took it to the end to get you guys to come around to doing what I wanted you to do. Holy crap.
Alright.
So these operators are used for comparing primitive types. Remember that the primitive types that we've talked about are int, double, and boolean. There are others, but these are specific to the primitive types that we talked about.
There are many like these which bars.
Remember that strings are not primitive types. So they do not behave in the same way. Basically what this boils down to is Java had to create a different way of comparing objects. Because, well, an integer is always an integer, one object may not be the same as another object. So why would it make sense to use the same method of comparison as everything else? Like you wouldn't try to compare the picture quality of a television with how well a refrigerator can keep something cold. It doesn't make any sense. So, that being said, Java tries to alleviate this issue by giving programmers a method when they actually create the definitions of objects called equals. Every object in Java has a method called equals, including string. You guys have actually seen the equals method once already before, which when you take two strings and you say string 1 dot equals and then string 2 in the parentheses, that will return a true or false value depending on whether or not the two strings are exactly equal to each other in terms of what characters are in the strings. But every object has this capability. So, just to reiterate my previous point, if we say hello dot equals hello, what does that result in?
Incorrect spelling error.
What?
Incorrect spelling error.
Oh. No, I mean, like, legitimately, what does it mean?
Hello.
No. What does hello dot equals hello result in?
True.
Okay, thank you. Jeez. And of course, if we come down here and we say hello dot equals world, obviously false. And I forgot my semicolons. So why can't we use the double equals sign to compare objects? This is more of an advanced topic. It's actually something that Java does to help the programmer so that they don't have to deal with memory management, but they still can if they sort of want to. If we have a string called data and we set it equal to hello, if we say data double Stop at word. If we say data double equals data, what does that result in?
True.
Good. So this equals true. If we say data double equals hello,
False.
very good. Why though? Anybody got any guesses?
Because can't compare two objects.
But why though? So if I let me do something else. If I say string other data equals data, and I say other data, man, word, you're really starting to piss me off. What is that equal to?
True.
Right. When you use the double equals operator with an object, Java is trying to figure out whether or not the reference to that object in memory is the same as the other thing on the other side. So like, you know that computers can store things in memory as, you know, chunklets. Basically what Java is doing is it's trying to figure out if the two variable names on either side of the double equals sign have the same memory space that they're occupying. Does that make sense? It would be sort of like saying it like this. I have an apple in my left hand. If I could somehow superimpose a copy of that apple into my right hand, is it still the same apple? No, it's a new apple. It's in a different hand. It's in a completely different location. That's the point here, is Java is trying to see if you've made a copy of something or are using a copy of something that might be the exact same thing, but is not in the same space. Does that make more sense? Okay. So when I say data double equals data, it's the same variable. It's the same memory space. Of course it's going to be true. If I say data double equals hello, a string literal like this literal is stored somewhere else. It's not stored in the same place as data, so it returns false. If I say string other data equals data, all Java does is make the pointer to memory, the actual reference to the memory space that data stores, the same as what data is. So this is literally storing the same location in memory as what this is storing.
And that's basically saying hello, hello, right?
Right. I mean, it's not actually looking at what's stored there. It doesn't care. It doesn't care that hello is stored there. As long as the memory spaces, the actual number of the memory address that it is looking to is the same on both sides, it doesn't care what's stored there. Does that make sense? Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
You won't have to worry about double equals in objects very much for robot programming. It's very rarely used. More often than not, like 99% of the time, you're going to be using something like dot equals or dot equals ignore case in the case of a string, what have you. There are instances where I've had to use it simply because of some more advanced concepts that would probably be more talked about in an advanced setting version of this class, but for us here, it's less important. That being said, let's look at in fact, before we do that, I need to take a break. I'm going to go to the restroom here, and then we'll come back to this, and we will take a quick look at what this might actually look at in code.
Go back to the video. I can tell you
All
which
right.
one it is because I watched
Okay,
it.
let's go.
We're back. I'd like to get this done. For some reason, my body is crashing and I cannot get my reins around it, and I don't have any meds with me other than ones that I can't use in public. So it's not really all that funny, but I suppose it is. They just make me sleep, so that's why I can't use them. I'm not falling asleep here at Mr. Klein's house. So, I was hoping they have a storm coming too. So, I wouldn't be able to upload anyways if it rains, because I sit outside when I go to UMA.
You just like steal off of their Wi-Fi or something.
Yeah. 4 megabytes per second upload.
Dude, tech centers get faster than that.
He's not gonna trust me.
I'm not gonna try to get onto the tech center internet.
I could tell you the exact. It's tech center and least speak.
Oh, for God's sake. Anyways, let's continue. We've already wasted a minute here. So, I want to give you guys some basic examples of how an if statement might work. So, let's create two integers. Okay. So, what do you see here? Anybody want to take a swing?
You just set the if value. So if the first value is actually equal to the second value, it's true. If it's not, then it's false. And it will say that the first value will equal the second value. But if it's false, it will say that value 1 will not equal value 2.
Good. It's a fairly straightforward one. Okay. So, what happens if I do... Hang on a minute. What happens if I do this? Okay.
Now you're saying if value 1 is equal to value 2, then I'll say value 1 is equal to value 2. But then if it will put in value 1 and value 2, will compare them, and it will say value 1 is greater than value 2, or it will be false and say value 1 is less than value 2.
So let me try to translate that a little bit closer to some slightly more normalized English here. If value 1 is equal to value 2, then use this print line. Else if value 1 is greater than value 2, then print this line. Else print this line. Now, why can I say is less than down here without actually using else if value 1 is less than value 2? Why can I do that?
Because the output is true or false.
Well, no.
Secondary truths are false, or?
Well, no, because I can do this. I don't need to include the else. I can say value 1 double equals value equals value. Yeah, value 1 equals value 1, and I can go like this, and then put code here. That's perfectly acceptable. There's no problem with doing this. But why do I not have to put else if value 1 is less than value 2 here? It's because it's literally the only other option. Like, we've already covered all of our bases everywhere else. We've covered the equals condition. We've covered the greater than condition. So what's the only other thing that the numbers could be with each other? Right. Value 1 is less than value 2. So essentially you could put a comment here that says value 1 is less than value 2. And that would tell the person who's looking at your code, this is what this piece actually means without me having to type it out. Oh, jeez. I've never thrown up on an episode before, but there's first time for everything.
I'm not watching the video.
I'll pause it before I do. So this is the general idea behind an if statement. And of course, as I showed you before, you can have it in any sort of level of structure here. So if you just wanted to do value 1 double equals value 2, put code here, else, put code here. These are all correct forms. And you can have as many else ifs as you see fit, as long as you have at least one if. And you don't even have to have the else here. This will still compile fine. It's just...
Could you compile it right now?
I just did.
Yes.
It's not going to say anything different more times than I click the button. And I can bong bong. Whoops. I can put it back and keep compiling it, and it's not going to change anything. So you don't necessarily need the else there. You don't need to necessarily put any else ifs. It's just one of those things where it's specific to the situation that you're in that you need to use them. Now there is one other thing that I'd like to show you, and that is this. So if value 1 double equals value 2, yeah, that's a bit better. System.out.println, println, whoops, the wrong thing. I'm getting there. My hands are starting to get distracted because my body hurts so much right now. I forgot the is word. Oh my god, please stop stabbing me in the kidney. Sweet lord. Whatever it is pissed with my kidney. It's... I mean, I have a super high pain tolerance just because of what I've been through, but this is ridiculous. It's so inconsistent. Alright, so my question to you guys is the top block here, does that do the same thing as this block here?
Yep.
Yes? Other hunter?
Yes.
Okay. It does. And neither way that it's written is wrong. This does look a little bit more concise. It's a little bit neater. But this is actually called nesting. For this assignment, for this coming assignment for this week, you shouldn't have to do any nesting as far as I'm aware. No. But you will have to use else if in order to accomplish the task. but this is just sort of the general idea of how this all works. Basically, an if statement is just something that evaluates one or more Boolean conditions to either true or false, and depending on that value, it either moves on to the next statement it needs to evaluate, or it moves on to the else block, or it moves on to the next piece of code. Like if there's no else block here, then this piece of code does nothing. It will check to see if the values are equal. They're obviously not, because they're 25 and 32. It will check to see if value 1 is greater than value 2. It's obviously not, because they are 25 and 32. That'd be 25 is greater than 32, which doesn't make any sense. And because there's no else block, all it's going to do is move on to this next piece of code. That make sense? Yes? No, maybe? It's getting really dark outside. Winter's approaching. So are there any questions about if statements? You will use one if statement, one if else statement in your assignment for this week. And I just want to make sure that everything is clear. And of course, I hear it coming.
Thor is angry.
It's a song, isn't it? I hear it coming. Isn't that by The Weeknd?
I'm not too sure, but I think that's recreating what's happening with your kidneys right now.
Jeez. So as it gets darker and darker in this room, and you guys can see me less and less on my camera, oh, I have an IM. We are going to ow. We're going to stop this video because there are no questions. The last piece of this will be to talk about the assignment, and then we'll be done. The people here will be given the opportunity to start. I don't know that I'm going to make it to 3 o'clock. We might have to call Mr. Klein and have him come back early because, oh my gosh. It's just every once in a while I'll get a nice long break. It'll be like 5 minutes of, calm, and then all of a sudden, BAM! Right in the kidney. So I don't know if I'm about to pass into the kidney stone or what. I really don't want to. I don't have anything that's going to combat the pain from the kidney stone. But that being said, this piece of it's done. We're moving on here.